What's up, everyone? Welcome to Fire Footwear. Today, I present to you my first ever guest on this podcast, and I'm really excited about it, honestly. And for my first guest, I have Chris Chase, and you may know him as Chris from WearTesters. It was a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it, and let's get to it. This is Fire Footwear. The first for me is having a guest on either the YouTube channel or the audio. And of course, I have to go big or go home, I guess. And my first guest is somebody who I feel like doesn't need any introduction. And that is Chris Chase, or Chris from WearTesters, as I feel like everybody knows. And everybody knows you, man. And I just want to say out front, thank you for taking out the time, because obviously you have a lot on your plate. And to find time to meet up with people like myself is pretty awesome, in my opinion. So I really appreciate it. And welcome to the channel. Welcome to being the first guest.
Thank you. I think this is awesome. So, yeah, this is cool.
So I have to ask first thing, because I was thinking of how do I do this, right? How do I have a guest? How do I not seem like a total idiot and ask the cliched question? So I do like to ask people if I meet them, where I'm like, if you're with people like me, right? If you're recording with somebody like me who is several rungs below you in terms of popularity, what is the one question that you always get asked that you absolutely hate answering?
I don't necessarily hate answering anything, just because every person doesn't know you like that. You know what I mean? So to assume would be fairly arrogant. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I treat every video. Every video is ongoing. So it's like a series, right? Since 2009, I've just been talking to the camera. So a lot of people that have watched me since then, which thankfully there still are a large number of those people that have been day one supporters. They pretty much know whatever it is, they probably know it. And then there are other people that I know just found us maybe 5-10 minutes ago. You know what I mean? So the internet is a vast place. And so I understand, especially in this space, things can be repetitive. And so I just try my best to just kind of go through the motions. That's why every Jordan 1s, so if we're going to talk about something that you dislike doing, talking about a Jordan 1 has gotten a little hard. Just because it's there's only so much to talk about. They've released so many OG colorways, and then there's all these new ones, and nobody cares. So it's stuff like that. But as far as a person-to-person interaction, we're just chopping it up. It's all good.
So that actually tracks with what I've always thought about you from a distance. And I think I should be transparent that the reason that we're here, the reason this is happening, is because I did that super cringy thing that I feel really weird doing. And I made a video about people or creators that I actually enjoy, and I was authentic in that. And then I tagged you guys in it, which is the cringy thing that I feel so weird doing, but on brand with what I feel like I know about you and everything that you do on your content. You actually responded. And so that was so out of I was wow, I can't believe that actually happened. And it was good. It's oh, good. There's a creator who's made it to a certain place who can still stay humble for that 1 second, because I can't tell you how many creators at my level will just flat ignore you. And so I've always appreciated that about you. I've appreciated that about your content. And that answer was humble. It's who you are. And I'm so happy about that. And that's what makes what you do so special. So that's me just, vomiting all over you in terms of platitudes. But that's what I feel. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think I sometimes get tired of answering questions, and maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should think about this interaction as the first one, or one of very few that I've had. And this person either just found me or is a ride or die, and I should treat them all with respect. So thank you for humbling me very early on.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to, but yeah,
no.
That's just how it is, everybody is different. And yeah, I think having patience and being able to have dialogue, so we can all learn from each other, that's I think the most important thing. You know what I mean? When we go through memories, in video or off. We're all from different like sneaker eras. And so one of my favorite questions that came up, because we do a question of the day at the end of each video.
Right.
And so like those are all viewer submitted. They just leave them in the comments. It's really cool. We can pull from them and kind of like interact with the audience in that way. And the one that like sticks out in my mind as like being true to like this type of topic was like, what is or who was TV show wise, like that we all grew up watching, your definition of like the wear of sneaker heat on TV. You know what I mean? And there were so many different like shows that came through my head, and then listing through the comments, like there's dudes that older than me that were watching shows that I've never even heard of or seen before. And so it's really cool to like see stuff like that. And this is where like, you know, all of us need to take a step back and be like, yeah, we don't know everything. You know what I mean? Like we don't know all information of all time. Like there's stuff for everybody to learn, you know, from
Chris,
one another.
You're asking people to like take in new information and actually process it and
appreciate it at the very least.
But you bring up a good point, because so I'm relatively new in comparison to others in the sneaker game. Like I always tell that my story is boring because I don't have the same origin that so many people have, where like they love sneakers from a young age, and I did love them from afar, but it just wasn't in my space because of the way that life was, and my beginnings weren't nearly as humble as what you described to me offline. But I didn't have like the Jordan 1 or the Jordan 2 or 3 or whatever. It was like the Reebok Pump. And that was late. I mean, we're talking late into sneaker culture, almost a decade in, right? And it wasn't until I was in my 30s where I decided to go all in, and I could actually afford it and could actually appreciate it. And since then, I have dove like head first into the culture, the history, and all that stuff. And over time, I feel like I don't want to say that stuff has been lost, but it does seem as if it's been put to the side, put to the back burner a little bit. And like, how does that make you feel? Because you've been in the game so long, and every single one of your videos goes back to history. It gives you some nugget of information. I think I said that to you. I learn something every time. And even if it comes down to a carbon fiber plate or whatever that I didn't know was there, it's something that I learn about and I appreciate it. But I feel like we're getting to the point where there are so many sneaker heads, if you want to call it that. I'm not even a huge fan of that term, that don't care.
There are a lot that don't care. I do find that to be unfortunate, but at the same time, everybody, kind of like you said, has their own origin story. So, you know, all I can do as somebody that enjoys basketball shoes is what I'm into. Like basketball is how I got into this. So like I wore Payless all the way until 6th grade. I think 7th grade is when I got my first pair of Nikes. And that was after a really long time begging, you know what I mean? And even then they were like bargain bin. I actually have them back here if I want.
That's awesome.
So like I've recently acquired these right here. And so mine were all black with a white check, and they were literally in a bin, like tied together and all that stuff. And it was at this store that's no longer around called Oshman's. And I had to look through the Sunday paper, the color paper, because that's when they had all of the ads. And so I was certain, my mom was just like, you can have a pair of Nikes or whatever if you can find them for 40 or less. And I was like, the heck, like they're always like $100, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, I think she thought that I got given like an insane challenge that will never be met. So I was like, no, man, I'm going to find a pair. So I did. But it's that drew me in the first place was performance. Like Nike's a sports brand to me. You know what I mean? Jordan's a sports brand to me. So that's where I got introduced to it. I all on my table right here. This is where we film and stuff. But I have like all of these. These are old as hell.
Oh man.
And you know what I'm saying? Like these are all, and inside of these is to me, you know, like this is sneaker gold. Like this is at least at the time that this was the only way to get information. And so it was like stuff like that. That's what I'm into. I love reading product descriptions. I love seeing icons of cushioning and what's in the shoe. And you can see that, or at least I hope that people see that in the content when I have an opportunity to show, like physically show, like a taken apart original or whatever it might be. And I can be like, yeah, this is what drew us. And that's, I think, again, going back to the whole like eras, like all of us are from different eras. This is what's important, is to not feel so arrogant that we think or assume that you know what we know, and to not think or assume that I know what you know or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Because we just come from different places, and to just pass that on. Because if you don't, then that's when it gets lost, you know? And so, like if we talk about culture, like real culture, not sneaker culture, but like,
Yep.
this is not sneaker culture stupid. Like, to be perfectly blunt, like it's consumerism, mass consumerism.
Yes.
But real culture comes from different ethnicities, different countries, different cities, different tribes, food, like all that stuff. If you lose that, you lose real culture. And so like, that's the thing, is that like when you talk about passing things from generation to generation, and I think that that's where like my mindset just, for whatever reason, automatically goes to that type of mode. And I'm not trying to sit here and preach or teach to people. I'm just talking about product the way that I see it.
I don't think it's preaching though, because when I come at content, and this is not about me, but about just in general, it's like I felt like I could fill a void of making sure that I learned myself while also trying to pass something on to new people. Like when I think about somebody who would find my pod or find the YouTube channel, it's somebody who maybe is like me, who just got into it and doesn't know. And if I learn something or have an opinion about something that maybe has been formed over the history that I go over, or things that I learn, I want to pass that on in a way that is engaging and meaningful, and isn't just for clicks, isn't just for getting the bag, as they like to say, because to me, it's important to be a part of a culture. Like I do see sneaker culture, like when you say it's stupid, the way I think a lot of people think about sneaker culture, to me, is stupid. But then when you get below that, right, you get below the clout and all that stuff that people,
the media spin of
yes,
what sneaker culture is, the sneaker cons, the reselling. This is what is portrayed as sneaker. That's not sneaker culture.
no, it's not. But that's what people think, and that's, I
Right.
think, what people get caught up in. And I
Yeah,
get it.
that's what they get drawn to. It's sad. That's the sad thing.
Yeah.
they
But
get caught up in greed.
But below that, there are people like us, and many people like us, who love sneakers the way that it's pure, right? The way that it's intended. Like if you didn't have a YouTube channel, you would still feel the same way. Nothing would change about the way that you felt about basketball, the way that you felt about basketball sneakers. And that shines through to me whenever you make a video, because so often as a creator, and I don't know if you've ever felt pressure to do this, but you either have to pivot or you feel like you have to sell out in some way because, oh, maybe I can tap into this vein and get however many new subscribers. But you guys say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do what I love and what I'm passionate about. And to me, that stands the test of time. Whereas other people are already pivoting, and you see them having to do something that's not sneaker related anymore. And that to me is sad. But I think I love thinking about it that way, because I'm so fascinated by the culture, the stuff that really matters, the people who love it, and engaging with those people. And you said it, cities. I live in right outside of Washington, D.C. There's a different culture here than there is in LA, than there is in New York, than there is in Tokyo. And all of it is awesome in its own right. And people who live here feel a way about it. And I love that
Right.
about
There's a
what
sense
we
of
have.
pride and ownership.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Love
And
it.
so yeah, like even just I'm from the Bay Area. I live now in Sacramento. The cultures are similar, but they're very different. And you go down to SoCal, very different. We're all in the same state. You know what I mean? Like, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
like it's stuff like this where like I feel like that stuff is important. And, to your point, like the people that pivot and stuff, like I've been there where, like right now is a good time, like where that's happening because sneakers are downward trending. But I've been on YouTube since 2009 talking about sneakers, and I've been here before. So
Yeah.
this is not new news to me. You know what I mean? Like everything ebbs and flows. There's always peaks and valleys. And I'm I'm a sneaker content creator, and there's not really anything to like shy away from in that sense. Like we're talking to like-minded individuals, so somebody like me in one way or another is on the other end of my camera, and the people that pivot are those ones. Unfortunately, they just kind of come through. You can kind of consider them culture vultures if you want, because they're coming through and they're doing what they do for personal reasons, for personal prosperity.
Sure.
And I've been in this no money, lots of money, back to no money. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, this is what I do. Like, I like sneakers. I love sneakers. Like, I will talk about sneakers.
Do you like the creating of content? Because they're different, right? Loving sneakers and loving content creation are two different avenues. And I think sometimes the people on the other side of the camera don't get what it takes to make content. And I talk about that way too much, but I think it's important that people know, like, this is hard.
Oh, it's really hard. I am not a content creator by trade or design or any of that stuff. I literally have been learning from other content creators.
Yep.
And I think that is important, because this is a culture too, like being able to use a camera, being able to edit footage. Like
Yes.
this is a, very, I mean, it's a nuanced process, you know what I mean? And you've got to have some sort of creativity or vision, and sometimes it's not there. And you still have to be able to power through it, especially if it's your business. Like, that's where it is with me. It's like, I've made WearTesters, from a cell phone on a kitchen counter to now like a converted garage into a studio. And it's fairly legit looking, I think, or at least I hope.
It
And,
is.
you know what I mean? And it's been a process getting it to here. And I feel like it's fairly automated at this point. I can literally come in here, turn everything on, and we're ready to go. I started a second
Yeah.
channel, and it's hard, dude. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to say. I don't know how I want to film it or edit it. I think that every video sucks. And you know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's one of those things. And it's almost refreshing to be in that mode again of like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And so like the challenge of that, like, you forget, and I don't want to forget those things. Like, I don't like forgetting where I come from. I don't like forgetting where I've struggled. And, those are the things that make you, whether it's a person or a content creator or whatever, like, that makes you who you are. And so like, it's those things where it's just like, yeah, it's a big kick in the nuts being like, you're not good at this twice. So,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
I think that the proof would be in the pudding that you are good at it, because you have built something from the ground up, which is the hardest thing to do. And I mean, I'm not in a position where I feel like this is ever going to be anything more than what it is for me now. And that's not underselling myself. It's understanding the reality of where it is. And I do this because I love it. And the room I'm in, similar to your room, I come up here and I ask the machine with an A name that I will not name because she will come on, to turn all this on, and it's on, and it's like you said, it's like ready to go. And this was not something that was here when I moved here, right? And this was not something that I started with. Right across the camera was where I started on a TV tray with a $15 microphone and a 6-year-old laptop. And that was good enough, right? And I listen back to that and think, wow, that sucked. That was awful. But you got to start somewhere. And even now, to your point, I'll put out a video and be like, I could do better. And then it's nice to hear like, oh, that was good. I'm like, oh, all right. So, okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And I think staying humble in that game, even when you get to a certain point, is really important. Because like, even people, when I say higher than you, like people that have so much of a larger following, like, they're not in the day to day. They don't do the day to day. They have people and teams and staff who do the day to day. And I think to myself, that'd be awesome if I could have somebody who did that for me, because I'm doing this with a job, trying to be present in everything that you do. It's a grind and it's hard. And the humility part is for me anyway, is what keeps me going. And it's like, this is what you want to be doing. Is if it becomes like work, like for you, it is a business, but it's like, if it feels like I'm not enjoying this anymore, that's the hardest part to get through.
There are days like that.
Oh, I have no doubt.
There's days that I just don't want to talk. That's the main thing. I'm usually really quiet. I'm pretty shy. You know what I mean? Like you take me out of here and you put me in like a public setting. I'm like, nah, this. I'm like sitting in a corner.
Oh my God, yes.
So you know what I mean? Like I am not that guy. So I get anxiety,
so
like all kinds of stuff.
To get off of like sneakers and content creation, I'm the same way. I've learned as I've gotten older, and maybe the pandemic did this, but I've learned that I'm an introvert at heart. I've always thought I was extroverted, and maybe that does change for you, but I think I'm an introvert with extroverted tools. So this to me is extroversion. Going out in public is extroversion, but it's a different kind. And I will tell you what is draining me the most is coaching 4 and 5-year-old T-ball. My God, that is so draining. And I get home and I want nothing to do with a human being for a good amount of time because I can't make content on those days because I just I'm not there. My battery is gone.
It's funny that you say that because I volunteer coach my son's basketball team and I'm in my 3rd season or whatever, like of doing it. And the game days are draining, but it's because I'm so into the sport. So like I'm right there. I'm just yelling the whole time, trying to make them see things and stuff like that. But the practice days are my pick-me-up days. Like sometimes I'm very low, you know what I mean? And like mentally. And so like I don't want to do anything, even basketball sometimes, which sucks because I love playing basketball and I always feel really good afterwards. But like getting myself to get there is hard. And the kids, I won't let them down. So like that's where like I'm there, and it's after the kids bring me up. Like, you know what I mean? Like the kids are so pure like literally enjoy the learning process and all that stuff. Some of them are good, some of them are awful, and they all try so hard. You know what I mean? And so like it's so interesting to like be around that and just be like, yeah, like this kid over here like was struggling today, but man, he was giving us everything. You know what I mean? And so like if we could just like steer him a little bit and be like, hey, this is what you're good at, bud. You know what I mean? Like that's the part. And then that builds his confidence. You see the big eyes and smiles. And so it's like stuff like that where like I definitely get a big pick me up dealing with that. Dealing with regular humans is one of the, like, I will like be in it, like mentally, like before it even happens, I'll be like, oh man, what's about to happen? You know what I mean?
Oh, I think they call it pre-pissed off. Like I get that way. When if I have to have a meeting at my day job and I look at the participant list, I'm like I already know, like I'm going to be annoyed. I'm pre-annoyed. I know it's going to trigger me in some fashion, but you're right though. Like with the kids, it's draining for me because I'm so involved. Like I volunteered to coach and I want them to have fun. I want them to know that I'm there for them, that I'm there to coach them and teach them. And I really get triggered when other coaches, I put coaches in quotes because they're really like the team photographer and they're just there. Oh, we're having fun. You know, it's like, I get it. They're 4 and 5-year-olds, but I want them to learn something. And when they do learn something and you see the progress that's happening, case in point, the last game that we had to play against a coach pitch team. So I have a T-ball team and then we have a team that actually gets live fire. And so getting the kids to pay attention, getting them to field the ball because the kids are hitting the ball harder. We had worked on that earlier thinking they'll never need to use that until they get to the next level. And then watching them ranging to their left at 5 years old, making a stab and throwing to first base. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like this is fantastic. And they get so stoked when you get stoked. I love that. I love seeing when you say to a kid, that was awesome. The validation, like even as adults, we need it. But at that age, like they're still navigating the world and all the emotions, and seeing that happiness is just, I do enjoy that. But then I am like really down when I'm out of that because I have to deal with other adults.
Right. Yeah. It's such a weird dynamic. The basketball court is one of the few places where I can walk onto it and everything around it turns off. It's like super weird. And I don't know if it's just from playing it, over the years. Cause I remember when I was a teenager, I'd get so like, I guess it was anxiety. I didn't know what it was at the time, but like I'd get so anxious and I wouldn't want to let like the people that was watching down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Including your own teammates and stuff. And so like sometimes my performances would like really be bad. And then as I've gotten older, like for some reason, just everything gets tuned out to a point to where like I don't notice anything. So like my first day usually with these kids is because they give you like almost like a new roster every season. So like you're working with, sometimes it's the same kid, sometimes it's not. And so I'm always like in the back of my head that first day, like, oh, what are the parents going to think? 'Cause I don't know what I'm actually doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I'm not a real coach. So like,
Yes.
like, you know what I mean? So like, I'm just like, what do I do? And it's hard to teach these kids where some of them are like, yeah, dribbling with my left is easy. And you got other kids who are like, I can't dribble at all.
Yes.
And this is on the same team, you know what I mean? So like, I'm just sitting here being like, okay, let's get these things done. And so like by the mid portion of the season, this literally just happened to me yesterday. One of the parents, I see them at pickup at school because the kids are classmates, and her dad or whatever. So like the grandparent was bringing their kid to coaching. And she was just like, dude, my dad is your biggest fan. And I was like, what? Like, what is that? Like, you know what I mean? And like, I was like, when have I met your dad? You know what I mean? And like, she was just like, he was at practice and he watches you every practice. And like, he's always just really impressed by like how you do things. And like, I'm just like, internally, I'm like being like, what the, cause like, I don't know what's going on, but like outside, I'm just like, oh, thanks. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's weird.
Well, you think that, right? So that's in line with what you said about doing YouTube. You're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but clearly you do,
For sure.
right? So clearly in coaching basketball, you do know what you're doing. And you sound very much like myself, where if somebody compliments you on something, it's like, oh, I don't really know how to take that. Like it's super awkward and I clam up.
Super awkward.
I hate it. And I hate getting gifts. There's so many things that I don't like, where it's like the focus is on me, which is ironic because we're sitting here in front of a camera, right? But it's different. It's different when somebody comes up to you and it acknowledges something that you don't believe. And do you feel that way sometimes? Like, do you ever have imposter syndrome when somebody says like, oh my God, you're Chris from WearTesters. I've been watching blah, blah, blah. And you're like, you know what I mean? Like, do you ever feel like you're not worthy of that praise or that attention or what?
24/7, man. Like, it's like not even just this space. It's like the stuff that I have, you know what I mean? Like the things that you've earned, not literally like items, even though that can count too, but like just the house, just, you know what I'm saying? Like stuff where you're just like, dude, I grew up in an apartment with a single parent. Like I was telling you before we started recording, like I, had no future. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing. Like it didn't matter unless I like got so good grades, which I didn't, that like I earned some sort of scholarship, which wasn't happening, or I was so good at a sport that I would, get a spot on a team, which wasn't happening. Like I had no future. You know what I mean? So like I didn't know what was what. And so I just kind of like went with whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just like, all right, like today you got to go to school today. So like, you know what I mean?
Really?
There's no. So yeah.
Did you feel like I don't want to say that you were forgotten, but you really felt like you had no future? Like you at a young age had already decided like life is just not in the way of like I'm not meant to be here, but I'm not meant to have what people say that I should have, or people say that everybody should have.
Nobody told me that either. That was the thing. I was always told the opposite. Like you don't need that. You don't deserve that. You shouldn't have that. And so like every day was like, oh, I'm not worth anything. So like it was freshman year. I gave up. You know what I mean? Like I was like, yeah, I don't have a future. I'm just here because I'm supposed to be here.
I mean, like I know you're not looking for pity, but hearing that is sad, because when I think people see you on camera and they're like, man, this guy has it all. I mean, there are people that have to think that, and you're in the back, right? Like there's two Chris's on camera. There's the one everybody sees, and then there's the one that nobody sees. And that person is fighting you and saying you don't deserve this. And that speaks to mental health struggles. It speaks to the trauma, to use the word, right, that you had from hearing like you're not worth this. And I I probably, I did not know that's how humble your beginnings were, but like, it makes so much sense again, like with how so I will tell you that like over the years, you're the only sneaker YouTube channel that I follow now. And it's because everybody else feels fake, and maybe they're not, I'm not, but it's like, and so it to me, it is humbling to hear that like you came from, when people say like, I came from nothing, you came from literally nothing.
Yeah, I don't have.
You
So,
do now. I mean,
now I have some stuff, but like it's still, even then, it's not like what I wish. Like I wish I knew some of this stuff a long time ago. You know what I mean? But nobody was teaching me stuff like this, and
yeah,
so yeah, like essentially how to just invest in yourself. You know, even though you don't see the bigger picture later. But yeah, like when somebody would talk about like purpose and stuff like that, you see this all the time with like athletes and things like
yeah,
that. Like I always feel like, even now, like I get surprised sometimes when somebody hits me up, whether it be you or a designer or somebody else, like whatever, like a viewer, like and they're like, oh, blah blah blah, and they tell me this compliment that I don't know how to take, and then I turn around later on and I'm like, because I'm a like a way overthinker,
yeah.
like whatever you say to me, I'm gonna, like, that's gonna be on repeat for a long time.
Yep.
And
Heard.
and so I'll be like sitting there and like I'll just like talk to my wife and just be like, was this my purpose? Like, was to do this? You know what I mean? Like, and so like it's just something interesting to think about, because like I said, like I never have, it never feels like, you know what I mean? Like you're supposed to like you talk about destiny, whatever it is, like none of that stuff. I'm just a clump of cells just living until I'm not. So it's weird to think in that sense.
Yeah, and whereas growing up, like this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be not a content creator, but like I had an idea of being creative, and my destiny, if you will, was sort of determined by people that said that's not for you. And again, it was a different path, right? Because it was like, you will go to college, you will do this, you will study this. And I got through it and I was like, I'm not happy. Like, I'm not happy at all doing any of this. And it was something that I needed to acknowledge and say, I need to do something else. And even in retrospect, I wish that I was given the freedom to be creative, to be who I wanted to be, and I would have been in a different place. But I also am a firm believer that things happen for a reason. And so it is one of those where I have no idea why things happen the way that they do. But if something had changed along the way, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be sitting where you're sitting. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. But you talked about how you talk to your wife, and she's somebody who has, I would say, a somewhat of a personality on your content and your channel. And I think it's important. And what kind of a role does she play? Not just in helping you with the business, helping and supporting, but like, what are some things over the years that you would acknowledge and say like, man, if it's not for her, like something, this wouldn't have happened, or whatever? Because I assume that having known her so long, and she's in it with you for the eternity of all of this, and that's got to be kind of a humbling feeling.
It's a weird, I don't know what to say, but like it's an interesting relationship, just because because we just, like, coincidentally, we just talked, somebody asked like a question like this for like one of our end questions of the day, and like it was like, what if you like didn't meet each other or whatever, like where do you think you guys would be at and stuff? And like she had said that she thinks that I'd still be here, and then to your point, like I believe the same thing, which is like everything happens for a reason. I've always gone just with feelings. Like I've always been a creative person too. I used to draw, and I wanted to be like, that was my other thing. Like if it wasn't a basketball player, I wanted to be a comic book artist. And so it's like that fantastical world is where my brain, at least my young self, like was safe. You know what I mean? And so when I met her, like it's always just been, like we're here, we're together, we get along, like we don't argue. You know what I'm saying? So it's stuff like that. So like there's a comfort level there.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what she brings out of me in the content. Because like like I said, I'm a pretty shy and quiet person. So before, like it would be like I'd set everything up. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to film. Don't bother me, because like otherwise I'm going to clam up, and I already clam up. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
I'm already like that. So like, and then it got to a point to where like I got these new cameras and, the viewfinder, I couldn't move it. And like, I'm cheap. So like, I'm not trying to buy like external monitors so I could plug them in and see myself. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my God.
Yeah. So like, I was like, hey, can you like just kind of like sit there and just make sure that I'm in focus and that it doesn't turn off on me? And because anybody that makes content knows you can get through, you can get through it and then realize that you didn't do anything. And like, you're
Sure.
just like, dang. And so, yeah, so like she was doing that. And then because she's back there, I just naturally just talk to her. You know what I mean? Like, it's like hard to ignore somebody.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so like that's where the content creation together started. And she had also like asked, like, because like I was doing everything from the website to the editing to the filming to B-roll to the testing to the imagery, everything was by myself. And so like she was like, yo, like you're like running yourself like really down, you know what I mean? And so like, is there anything I could do to help? Like I was like, I really hate editing. And so like if you wanted to sit there, I will teach you how to edit and you can go for it. You know what I mean? Like I'll teach you the style that we're going for and this and all that stuff. So like that's what we did. And so yeah, so I still have like final edit, but like I don't change much usually, you know what I mean? Like only sometimes. And even if I do change stuff, it's like super minor stuff. It's like a visual or like a transition or just something like that. You know what I mean? Like a quick cut. It's not anything crazy. So like a lot of what you see is like her edit and everything. And then, it's funny when you talk about like, oh, like she's been behind, like it wasn't actually like that. You know what I mean? Like she thought that this was weird and I agree.
My wife's the same way. My wife thinks
I mean?
this is crazy. She's always kind of felt like it was weird, but what's happened over time is she's noticed that like, wow, something is happening here. Like, because I've been out before and people will say, oh my God, aren't you that guy? Because like in the DC area, you know, it gets caught up and they're like, aren't you? And I'm like, wow, that's happening now. Like it would never happen like anywhere else, but it would happen here. And it's like at the airport, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
you're Matt Freitz. I'm like, yes, I am. I mean, how do you know that? And I'm like, oh, right. And so like she'll see those things happen, and she has over time said like she won't like edit or do anything, but it's like she understands that the time is precious, right? So she'll allow me to do this stuff, and she is much more supportive and doesn't think it's weird. And especially when like if money starts rolling in, then she'll be talking. She'll be like,
that was
oh,
the difference. Yeah,
100%,
that was the difference maker. So like
100%.
I had told her when we got monetized, like the channel got monetized, like a really early on in its creation, because it used to be called Nightwing 2303. That was the channel.
Yeah.
And so it was just a screen name. It wasn't like hey, I'm going to make a channel. You know what I mean? Like it was just something stupid. And so yeah, so like within 4 months of making sneaker content, though, because nobody was making performance reviews. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't a thing on the YouTube platform, and that was my interest within sneakers. Was like I play basketball in these things, and so like I needed a performance review. I couldn't find one. Professor K's site was gone because he went over to Nike and started working in their developing team. And so like these are all things I didn't know at the time, but I was like, where's this guy's site? Like my shoes fell apart. You know what I mean? And so like that's what urged me to buy a new pair and to pick up my phone and be like, I see people on YouTube all the time making videos on shoes. Like I'm going to do the way that I feel like it's important, you know? And so like within 4 months we got monetized, and I told her then, like, I was just like, hey, like you'll be able to quit your job soon because I'll replace your income. And she was like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? And it took me like 4 years, but I did it. You know what I mean? And so like, and that was like the thing. And so then I think it was like 5 years later, I did it with myself. And like, I was just like grinding, you know what I mean? So like all the time. So yeah, I didn't sleep much, and it was just a lot of work. But that's where like she's been through it with me, even if just as a viewer, like herself, but like a firsthand witness.
Yeah.
And so now it's to a point to where it's like, yeah, this is the business. This is what we do. She respects it and all of that stuff. And I think that that's cool because, it's kind of like the cliche saying of like everything's earned, not given. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like everything I have is like, I've done this myself. Like I earned this. And so, you know, and a lot of people just will see things on the, like kind of what you were saying, they'll think that everything's great. I'm just a person. So,
Oh man, I
you know,
know. I know. Like I'll get messages sometimes. They'll be like, "Your content is awesome," and blah blah blah, or like, "Hey, how come you didn't come out with an episode this week?" And I'm like, "Man, like it's a team of one here, and like
right.
HR is not giving me any time off, so I've got to do it all." And I do love it, right? And I'll watch your videos, and I'm such a nerd about things like the what it takes to make content that I'll be like, oh, they've got X amount of cameras. I bet you they're using this camera. Oh, look at that. They did this kind of a cut, this kind of a transition. And I'll use it as how could I do it better? And or maybe there's things that I could add. Like I did a review, my first ever one, because I don't want to do that, right? Because there's already enough people. You want to learn about these things, go learn it from somebody else who does it way better than I do, is going to give you actual knowledge. But I still would watch and be like, what could I have done better? And I think that that's important. But I want to shift to some nerdy stuff, if that's okay with you, because you talked about like how she's in it, right? But how in it is she with like the collecting? Because you don't just collect sneakers. You're like me. You collect a lot of stuff. And does she just blissfully say, that's you, as long as you're not messing up what we got going on? Or do you still kind of have those like, another toy, another shoe, like not related to the channel, but it's like, again, do you still have those?
Yes, but it's like every day though. So like that's
Every day.
oh yeah. Cause like
Wow.
I go out in the mornings, like we go on walks and then like we'll go to Target and I will toy hunt every day. I just found two retro TMNT figures, the sports
Oh yeah,
wave.
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
So like I found two a couple days ago and then I found the two that I was missing today. And so like, and that's the that I love even more than shoes is comics and action figures.
Yes.
Like cartoons and stuff and, the superhero stuff, you know what I mean? Like I said, that's my first love as some poor kid in an apartment with my mom. Like that was my safe haven, was in those books and those stories. And so, so those are the things like I turned this, it's a mess right now. So I'm not even going to turn it around and show you, but this back half is the studio and that back half is my safe space. And so like,
Same.
so even if I'm frustrated, I look to my left and I have this, peg wall full of action figures hanging. And it reminds me of being a kid. I got all my original Turtles. I've got original X-Men, He-Man, all that stuff. It's all there. Flip head Power Rangers. The stuff that I really love is there for me to always just check up on and be like, okay, you're still that kid. You know what I mean? And so, so yeah, so that it's literally an everyday thing. My favorite movie is the 1990 TMNT movie, the real one with the puppet
Oh, yes.
suits and
No.
stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
I know every word. Like, and so like it's stuff like that. So like she's funny because like she'll tell the story. I think she did tell it. I can't remember if it was in one of our podcasts or if it was in the video, but like when she and I went on our first like date and everything, we after we were done with the movie and eating and stuff, we went back to my place because it was like it was my parents' house, but to my room. And when we get there, you know, normally you introduce them to your family or whatever, like be like, hey, this is whomever.
I
I
know where this is
introduced
going.
her to a pair of shoes and to my action figures.
Excellent.
So, you
That's
know
your
what I mean?
family.
The things that were important to me, you know what I mean? And it's been that way from day one. And, this is who I am is I love that stuff, you know, like it's the stuff that's always made me feel comfortable. And so it's weird, I will admit, but you know, that's just how I am.
I don't know if it's weird. I think that one thing that has happened is I think that society, for people in our generation, because we're the same age, where it's sort of been accepted that nostalgia, like that what you do
Today,
today, right? But
not back then.
no, that's but right. But I'm saying like over time though, like I feel like we have been validated for loving things that we loved as kids, where so many adults would be like, you've got to do this or stop doing this. Like my mom once told me, you're never going to get married if you still watch professional wrestling. Well, here we are, 41 years old, married, one kid, still watch professional wrestling. So thank you. You know what I mean? And those types of
Right.
things I think are less stigma than they were. Like, I love Transformers. That was my favorite cartoon growing up. And I watched a lot of cartoons, but I always had a pull to it. Like the movie, even though it was devastating because I found out about death through the movie, right? But I know every word.
Hearing people's stories about that original movie is the funniest.
Oh, it is.
Like, I love everybody's take on it. Some people love that movie, and some people are just like you. They get like, they're like,
well, so I started a Transformers podcast as an experiment because I thought they always tell you like niche stuff really works, and I was like, well, we'll figure that out. So I'm going to do it. I've never ever marketed it, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And all I do is watch the old shows, give hilarious commentary because at 40, it's like this wasn't as good as I remember it.
Right.
And we haven't even gotten to the movie yet. I can only imagine what that's going
awesome.
to be like. Right. So we're climbing toward the movie. We still got another half season to go. And when I get to the movie, there's like a pressure because the movie is so polarizing. I still love it, but now I recognize, oh, wow, they killed off so many people so they could sell more toys. How friggin' greedy is that? And it was like, and then you start watching G.I. Joe and it's like, a lot of war propaganda in here. Maybe we'll just push that to the side. But, TMNT, like watching it, my son was really into it for a while. And the old cartoon, I'm like, this is still boss to me. Like the old cartoon, everything they do now is okay, but like it's still is good because nostalgically it's good. But I recognize that okay, things could be better. But it is
the first 5 episodes of that show are epic.
Yeah,
the ones that came out in like the Pizza Hut stuff and like the VHS, like you had to get them on VHS, like and they were animated in Japan. Those are peak Ninja Turtles, which is sad because that's how the movie is too. It's like the first one,
my God.
It's peak. You know what I mean? Like they haven't done it right since. So like it's like stuff like that. But I will say that I love every iteration of the animated stuff. I love the 2000s series because it is very intertwined with the comics, which were weird. Like the comics were weird.
Yes. And Transformers was like that too. Like the Transformers comics were also very strange. And when you start to like put all of it together, that's one thing that's happened is I thought, I'll just review shows. And now it's like I find myself drifting toward, well, let me look this up because why did they do this? And then people will be like, you should look at X, Y, and Z. And now I'm like, awesome. I'm like in it to win.
I love the rabbit holes. Yeah, I love the rabbit holes. They're
many
amazing.
Rabbit holes. Yes. And then like with I'm sure Ninja Turtles is the same way, but with Transformers, it's interesting because you find out what lineages and how many toys have come out and like when they came out, Japan, US, and whether they coincide with what episode or what season that they were in. Like I recently was watching and I was like, I must be watching these out of order of what they debuted at because they debuted robots in the first episode. I haven't seen them again in 17 episodes. Like what the hell happened? And I'm like, I'm either watching these out of order or they massively up, but they also massively up a lot of stuff in the animation anyway. So I'm like, maybe that's par for the course for the 80s. They really didn't care about continuity and all that
G.I.
stuff.
Joe is closer to that.
So is it?
G.I. Joe, like they changed, well, so did Ninja Turtles, but G.I. Joe changed animation studios at one point, like after like the first or second season, and it just really tanked from there. But that was also like 90s era Joes. And so like everything kind of like coincided. Plus they had the comics at the same time. So it's like, it's a big circle of like confusion. And it's like really interesting to see it. And then they have that movie, the animated movie, which I absolutely love. Like I wore that VHS out and, that almost has nothing to do with, it's kind of like the Power Ranger movie where there was like all these seasons of Power Rangers and they come out with the movie in 95.
Yes.
And then they go back to the show and you're like, hey, wait, where are the cool suits? You know what I mean? And then they retell the Ninjetti story and you're like, that's not how it happened. And they did the same with this stuff where I was just like, wait a minute, Serpentor was not like, what happened? Like, you know what I mean? It was so strange. And so like, it's so fun to like go down the rabbit hole of nerdom and really see like that, like these guys were all like, when we talk about greed, they were all like managed by the money.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? Like they really went where the dollars were. So it's hilarious.
And it's so overt now. And we do not have time, obviously, to get down all these rabbit holes. You mentioned Power Rangers, but that was another one that I loved. And I felt like I was too old to watch Power Rangers. Like it wasn't meant for me.
I used to get beat up for it. I'd have to run home, bro. Like I had Power Ranger backpack and I was just like, oh, They're about to
But
get me again.
the original, like, I'm not gonna lie, there's gonna be a little bit of a revelation. I might still listen to some of the songs from the original show because like they were badass and like good fighting songs.
The Go Green Ranger and the Go White Ranger song are epic, dude.
Well, so the Green Ranger storyline was actually pretty good for the time, right? And I mean, obviously the actor passed away, but like the Green Ranger was epic, and the Dragon Zord was epic. Like that was one toy I always wanted. Like I had the Megazord, I somehow found one randomly, but I always wanted. And then they had the Brontosaurus toy, which was just I can't remember what it was called.
Titanus.
Yeah, and it's like that was almost excess at that point, like because they shoved 3 toys on top of each other in this thing. And I'm like, well, this is a little gluttonous in my opinion. But I love the Dragon Zord, and I felt like the Dragon Zord should have beaten everything. Like it just should have beaten everything.
Definitely. When that candle burnt out, I was bummed, bro. Like it was like I was like, how are you going? Like I thought they were going to figure it out. It never happened. You know what I mean? Like. It's kind of like the Transformers movie. It just like let you down. So like it was like one of those things where what the heck is going on here, man?
Dude, people in our age range, right? A lot of them will say, "Oh, I learned about death from The Lion King," and I'm like, "Hold my beer," because I learned when Optimus Prime died, and that was awful. Like it was just an epic way to get there. And Hot Rod sucks.
It's seriously that my most favorite thing that I hear people of our age range talk about is that movie. It's so funny to me. I just love it.
I should fly out to California. We should go out and do one of those things where you just like randomly talk to people on the street and be like, have you ever seen Transformers the movie? And just record their reaction and just splice it together, because it would probably be 10 minutes of just people either loving it, hating it, or you might get some really great reaction, because I'm starting to find that out. And are you finding that now? Because you have your channel, Some of My Favorite Things, right? And it's all about the nerd stuff. I assume that you have encountered people who are more nerdy than you through that journey. Yes. Have you not?
Not on that channel, but it's always on WearTesters, because WearTesters has much more reach. So there's much more eyes on that one.
Sure.
So I haven't really, actually I got one negative comment on the other channel, and I just thought that I was like, get the out of here, dude. Like I'd made a list of like the top 10 best action figure lines ever, and I gave my reasons.
I did watch that.
And at the end of it, I was just like, hey, like if you think that a different figure line, because there's lots of great ones, you know what I mean, but none that truly change the game, I feel, compared to these 10. So add in your thing. And this one guy like made a comment being like, oh, like, well, of course you picked these. There's so many others. And I was just like, oh yeah, and it was so nice to hear your input.
List.
Like there was nothing valuable about your comment. You were a lame-o. And so you know what I mean? So I was like, thanks. But yeah. So with that stuff, I get called like casual and stuff like that on the main channel. I can't even remember what it was about. And it was about Batman the Animated Series, because there's so many episodes, bro. Like I don't know all the names and all this stuff. I could tell you from the comics. I've read a ton of comics, but like the animated series, and I have them all on DVD, which is the funny thing. So like I just, it's stuff like that. My brain can only hold so much information. Yeah. And so I don't remember all those like little things. This guy was like, "You're just a casual on this." I was just like, "You, dude."
First of all,
what
like,
a tool.
What does that even mean? I love that that's an insult. You're just a casual. Okay, like, cool. I guess, am I supposed to lose sleep over something like that?
This is the f***ed up thing about the internet, is that it's like, hey, you like Batman. Me, I like Batman. And for some reason, this guy is like, well, I like Batman more. And I'm like, that's cool. Nice. Like, I don't give this is not a competition, dude. You know what I mean? Like, if you would have just taken the time to talk to me about Batman, I would have learned some.
Yes.
And we'd have had a good old time. You know what I mean? And this is what I'm talking about. Like this is why I'm just like, what's wrong with people, man? You know what I mean? Like, God. why can't y'all just have fun with it?
Batman is my favorite superhero, and I'm a casual, but I just love Batman. And one thing that comes up a lot is the Joker. The Joker always comes up with people. Oh, that's a terrible rendition of it, or that's a terrible reimagining of it. And I'm always like, the Joker is so awesome because it can be reinterpreted so many different ways and still work. And it's the beauty of the creation of these characters within this mythos, right? That can be something else. Like Batman, to be fair, is somewhat limited because you have, Bruce Wayne, Batman. Batman is only so much, but they have done so many different types, right? The aging Batman, the broken Batman. They've gone down so many different paths to try and give depth to a character that exists on this high, this high peak. But the Joker is one of those where nuance comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed, this is not a surprise, that many people who feel a certain way about something, whether it's a sneaker, whether it's a comic book, when nuance comes into play, it sort of messes with their preconceived notion of what it should be like. And right. I love Jack Nicholson, but that doesn't mean that that's the best Joker. It's just a different version of the Joker. You know what I mean? So I find the negativity, the people who comment, which I don't get a lot of because you have obviously a huge reach, so you're going to see that more. But sometimes I'll get something that'd be like, your opinion sucks. And I'm like, thumbs up. Great. Awesome. Like,
right.
I mean, well, cool.
Like, what do you want me to say to that?
Yeah. Every so often, if they catch me in a real shitty mood, I'll be like, hey man, I really appreciate that. Link me to the content that you make so I can learn a thing or two. Crickets. Because they don't make content because they don't have the whatever, right? There's some reason why they don't. And that's very rare because most of the time it's like, thanks for watching, appreciate your view, and then I log off and I'm like, go f yourself. So it's like, I don't really care. That, by the way, this is going to be the most intense edit I've ever done on a video because normally I don't swear on my stuff.
My bad.
No. This is good. I have
a terrible potty mouth.
Oh, so do I. So do I. It's been put to good use lately. So, dude, we could obviously talk for a very long time, and I don't want to take up more time. I would definitely love to have you back on to talk about nerd stuff and other stuff, but I understand that you're busy. But I'm
down though. We can always carve out time,
dude. I mean, I envision a pivot, not even a pivot, a new lane for Fire Footwear where we talk about nerd stuff because I'd love to learn a thing or two. I love to talk about this stuff. There's zero way my wife gives a shit about Transformers comics, toys, all that stuff. My son, on the other hand, tries to steal these, and I'm like, hey, look, bro, you gotta watch out here because I just love the originals, and the toys now that they make are they're awesome.
Really cool. Yeah, they're so cool. They don't make toys like that in the 80s, man. Like,
no. So Megatron that I have over here hanging out, like, I always wanted Megatron when I was a kid, and this one right here is just, it's almost perfection. It's almost perfection in a toy. And I realize that that's insane for a 40-year-old man to say, but you know what? It is what it is. I love it.
It gives you joy, and it gives you a feeling. You know what I mean? And that's how you know that your heart's in it. Like that, it's those things like that make you feel good. You know what I mean? And those things are important to keep alive. That's, I think at the end of the day, why did you make a YouTube channel? Because my wife didn't care about shoes or toys. You know what I mean? So like, who am I going to talk to about this stuff? She don't give a like. So like, it's like,
oh yeah,
I got to find somebody, man. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Although, I will say this, my wife's sneaker collection is getting rather large, so she can deny all she wants, but I've
been trying this whole time that me and my wife have been together for like 20 some odd years, and I've tried, she does like shoes, but like not the kind that I like.
Sure.
She likes Birkenstocks and Uggs and stuff. Like, I don't really, I mean, hey, to each his own, but like, that's definitely not my thing. So like, you know what I mean? And so she's definitely a different thing, but I appreciate it for what it is. I get her the things that she loves. She gets me the things that I love. You know what I mean? So it's all good.
That is true love. So before I let you go, my man, you have a Discord channel, obviously, and before we get to that, I just want to say, if you're not aware of Chris, WearTesters, any of that, there will be links to all the channels. Synth Apparel, I believe, is your clothing company, right? The
Synth, Synth Apparel.
That's what
I should have worn
synth,
something,
didn't I? Because that's the '80s thing I'm talking about. Like, it's just always in my brain because that's all I've been listening to for 3 weeks. So since I wrote it down too. I will say it is written on the paper, but I'm just like in an '80s frame of mind, so I do apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. It's a very small brand. Very small.
I know. Yes, but it's a brand. See, I don't have a brand, so you have a brand.
Well, you do have a brand. You just haven't made merch yet.
Oh, merch! Just if there is something that bores me to tears, it is figuring out what to do for merch, because I'm like, who the hell is going to wear anything that I create or that is related to me? But maybe one day There is
That's
still
why I
time.
did. That's why I did Sense, because like I don't feel like some people do want this on a shirt,
Sure.
and that's cool. And that's cool. I think
Sure.
that's cool. I would wear it too, but like, but I created it, so it's like it is what it is. But like the part with Sense is like it's my other stuff. And so like that's where like I'm like playing Fortnite with my son or whatever, and like I think of something randomly. I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to put on a t-shirt. And so like that's where that comes from. So like that's more like a creative outlet for me. So like I'm able to just like go at it at my own pace. There's no real pressure. You know what I mean? And yeah, and just whatever comes to mind, that's what you see.
I love that though. I mean, that's the way you're doing it, like as if somebody who just started, right? Somebody who is there. Like again, you don't have a team doing this, and that's I think the best part about everything you got going on. So if you are following me, like, and you don't know who Chris is, you're doing it wrong. But also make sure to follow. I always say this: support the people who support me. And you told me that you watched my videos, which blew my mind. And so I'm always a proponent. This is a fraternity. Content creators in this space, I treat it as a fraternity, and I feel like we should lift instead of push. And far too many people see it as competition. And in my opinion, it's something that I meet people through this that I never would have met. And when I started watching your channel in 2018, never in a million years would I have thought I'm going to meet this guy one day. Not only that, but talk to him on a product that I put out. So that's very humbling to me. And in that vein, one of the guys that I have in a very small Instagram chat room, KJ, he's been watching and following me since the beginning. He's like my first ride or die. He has a question that he wanted to ask you about who the most famous person you've met through sneakers is.
The most famous,
or not even famous. How about the one that sticks out to you the most, or the one that is the most meaningful? Because I know you did get a phone call from Shaq recently, not to name drop.
Oh yeah, that actually did happen.
I know.
I have a recording of it that you'll never see because I don't want to. That's like a violation of privacy. But
Absolutely.
like that was weird. That was weird. So maybe that'd be him. That wasn't even the first thing on my mind. Which is funny. He has my number, bro. Like, and he told me to save his number. And then when I was talking to the designer that linked us and everything, like the designer of his shoes, I was just like, is this his like actual number? And he was like, yeah, he gave you his real number. And I was like, what the heck? So like,
wild.
Yeah, it's like weird. Like, so,
congratulations.
Yeah, super strange. I know. My son on the regular is like, text Shaq. I'm like, shut up. That's not what this is for. You know what I mean?
God,
like, I can't just do that.
I would never. Like, I'm always weirded out when like I, go on another pod or whatever, and they're like, here's my number, hit me up anytime. I'm like, that's weird. Like, I would never. Yeah. But then, it naturally happens over time and you feel comfortable. But if that was the case, if somebody's like, here's Shaq's number, I'd be like, nope.
Right.
Like, not doing that, because I feel like a total loser every time I do it.
Correct. And that's the beauty of being a child is like, it's like, just do it. You know what I mean? Like Shaq's on Fortnite. I'm just like, shut up, man. That's
shame.
That's not what you do with somebody's number like that.
Awesome.
But yeah, the most meaningful though, definitely would be fairly recently. I think it was last year. I met Tinker Hatfield.
Wow.
And not just him, like that whole trip was wild. First off, I talked about it a little bit in our first episode of the podcast. So like, it was like, I think I titled it like the best day of my life, and which is hyperbole because it's definitely not the best day of my life, but it's one of them. For a compartmentalized version of me, definitely. But we're all multifaceted. It's not like we're just, that's the one thing when people ask you like, and it's only about shoes, it's just like, I like other stuff. So like, that's the thing. So, so meeting him, I met, Ernest Kim, Kixology, the guy that had the performance review website before I ever had the channel. I met him. I hung out with Aaron Cooper, where I got his shoes right behind me and stuff. You know what I mean? Awesome. Like, and it's just like, it's so weird. And like, I met Leo Chang and like all these other guys. And like, that's where those are the things where like, when those people hit me up, like, that's where like for that day and that moment, like, I'm just like, is this my purpose? You know what I mean? Like, and it sounds so weird, but it's like, it's so odd. Cause like my content sometimes makes them feel like they're ready to go back to the drawing board and start grinding again. You know what I mean? And that's the weird part for me. I'm just like, really, I did that for you? Like, that's strange. You know what I mean? Just because liked the product or didn't like the product, whatever it might have been, like, because they appreciate both types of feedback. And so being in the same room as Tinker, which I had been before, I've been in the same room as MJ, and that was weird as shit too. That
Oh,
was one
wow.
of those, like, yeah, I never talked to him, but like it was just one of those things. Kobe was another one too. When I was in
Ooh.
with Kobe, like that one, I was a little bit further from where my laptop is right now, and so like I could have like breathed on him, and he had this like aura, and it sounds weird to say that, but like he really did. Like it was like he
No
was
doubt.
like something, you know what I mean? And but yeah, like being in rooms with these people, even if I'm not, because like I normally, like I've been in a room with Tinker like at least twice and could not get up the nerve to talk to this guy. And then
It's hard.
I got forced into it on that trip because like I got to know Aaron Cooper, and so he and I are friends, and he's friends with all of these guys because he worked with them for so long. And so like he had a get together at his house, which is weird. And like when I was there, you know what I mean? And so like it's like, what am I doing here? And so yeah, and like I'm like, bro, you're crazy. I don't even let people know where I live. You know what I mean? So like this, it's so weird to me. But so I'm in there, I'm eating dinner, just regular, and then like somebody came out. I think it was Steve from Sneaker Tech Talk. He's another YouTuber,
Yeah.
and he was like, Chris, you got to come inside. And I was just like, I'm not done eating yet though. Like, and he was like,
That'd be me too.
yeah, he was like, trust me, bro, you don't want to miss this. And I was just like, okay. And so like I get up and I'm like to my wife, I'm like, can you like watch my plate and stuff? Because we was eating outside. And then Steve was just like, no, like bring her too. And like he's like, get the camera. I'm like, what the f- is going on? And yeah, I walk in and like Aaron's just like, yeah, somebody wants to meet you. And I was like, oh my God. Like it's
Wow.
Baker Hatfield, man. And yeah, it was such a trip. And I was a dumbass in front of him. So I hope that I get another time to like be like more coherent. Cause I wasn't on anything. I'm clean and sober, but like I just was like, my brain was spinning. Yep. And I didn't know what to say to him. So yeah, that was definitely the one person when I met him. It was just like, that's like teenage me would be so jealous right now.
I mean, you've earned it. I know maybe it's hard to believe that, but I think you've put in so much work. You have given so much to the culture, if you will. But I think the culture of sneakers, the culture of content creating, and I think just through a conversation like this, you've definitely given credence to people who maybe are in the same boat as you were, who felt like they were nothing and shouldn't be anything. And I'm glad that we went down that rabbit hole, to be honest. Like it's totally divergent from what people probably want to hear on this channel, but it's what I want to make and it's what's interesting to me. So I appreciate you answering that question. And the only thing I have for you is I met Charles Barkley once and I was not sober and he was not sober and he handed me a beer on Bourbon Street in New Orleans, and that was the craziest I've ever seen in my life. So it was just,
awesome.
That's Charles Barkley, and I now have a Miller Lite that he handed me. That's something that happened in my life a long time ago. So that's my celebrity story. But Chris, this has been eye-opening. I hope that this is the first of many. I would love to make this something that's regular because I think that we have so much that we could talk about that is, I think, something that people would want to hear. But I appreciate you taking out the time and just being as open, honest, and genuine as you are on your channel, and have that here for my listeners and viewers. So I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you having me on and making that first video, because that was I was uploading a video, like I was finalizing stuff, and then there's this tab next to comments in the back end,
Yeah,
and it said mentions, and I was like, what's that mean? So I clicked on it just by chance, and there was all these videos where like we were tagged in them. I was like, what the fuck is this? So I started going through them, and I land on yours, and then I was just like, oh, that's cool. And so I think I left a comment, and then I subscribed, I'm pretty sure, because I watch your content regularly. I watched your first review, the Agassiz.
it's okay.
And
it's
I thought it was cool. I just like that people like stuff. You know what I mean? Like whatever people like I like that you like it. So
it's my favorite shoe of the year so far.
It's amazing.
God, yeah. I love it.
It's so good. So, you know, and so, yeah, without that kind of stuff, like, you know, like I think that's where the community and culture comes from, is from like just being around and present. So I think those are important things to have. Nobody's bigger than anybody else. Like, we're all just people.
Well, there you have it, everybody. My interview with Chris from WearTesters. Honestly, it was a lot of fun, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. I hope to work with Chris in the future. And of course, you can always give your questions to Chris in the comments below, or you can call the Fire Footwear hotline, area code 202-643-9170. Hope this finds everybody well. I hope this finds everybody safe. And I'll see you next time. This is Fire Footwear.